Hello, how's everyone doing? Hope you're all doing okay. In this one, I'm going to be exposing the narcissist's final move so that you can prepare for it. Because I know sometimes these narcissists can be very unpredictable. It's like you never know what they're going to do next. Which is why it can be very beneficial to know what they're going to do. What is going to be their last move. And that's why I've decided to explore that in this video. So, of course, as we know, a narcissist's behaviors revolve around maintaining control, protecting their ego, or seeking revenge. And many of you might think, after many of the videos that you may have watched already on YouTube, you may think that the narcissist's final move is going to be playing the victim, the smear campaign, maybe hoovering you, discarding and replacing you, engaging in legal or financial manipulation, emotional sabotage. You might assume that maybe one of those things would be the narcissist's last move. But actually, there is something else. There is something that many of you may not see, may not think of, may not assume. Because in many situations, I mean, it looks like they just come in, they steal from you, they destroy you, and you're left just feeling miserable after everything they've done to you. And just looking for some hope, just trying to find some level of optimism within yourself to pull yourself out of the pit of misery that they left you in and to just put your life back together. And then they make it seem as though you were the problem, there was something wrong with you despite everything you did to try and help them. And now they've just gone off, they've moved on because you were the problem. So now they put it in your mind that since you're the problem and you're out of the way now, everything is about to get much better for them. And you may see that on their social media. They may give you these lies, these stories, making you think that now they're so much happier. Things are finally getting better for them. Now that they've gotten rid of you, they've got rid of the problem out of their life. And for many of you, you may feel like that's how it's ended. But they've just moved on. They've just forgotten about you. They've just left you behind because you were the problem. There was something wrong with you, is what they want to put in your mind, is what they want to leave you with when they're exiting your life after everything they did to you and everything they took from you. Well, you're the one who's left holding on. You're the one holding on to a lifeline, hoping that maybe one day they'll come back because they're so wonderful. They're amazing. They put it in your head that they did everything for you. They're the ones who sacrificed everything for you rather than you doing it for them. So you're left hoping and thinking, all right, well, hopefully they come back. Hopefully they will come and save me then. If they're the ones who are so wonderful and amazing, if they're the ones who did everything for me and turned my life around, then hopefully they will show me some mercy. Hopefully they will come back and save me, is how you may be thinking. Well, they've just acted as though they're being cold with you now because you were the problem. You ruined their life. You caused all the problems for them. And you've just got to get down on your knees at this point. You've got to beg them for mercy and hope that they just come back and give you another chance because they put it in your mind that you're the one who needs them rather than it be the other way around. As though you're the one who couldn't live without them. You couldn't make it on your own. You're not going to be any good without them. So you're left tied to them rather than them being the ones tied to you. You're the one left holding on to them, hoping that they're going to help you. They're going to save and protect you. They're going to shower you with their blessings as though you never did anything for them. Doesn't matter if you took them in, you upgraded their lives, you gave them everything they wanted, you sacrificed your entire life for them. In their minds, no, it's the other way around. You were struggling, you needed help, and they came in to help you. And you should be grateful for that. But instead, you were a problem. You caused all sorts of trouble for them, so they had to leave you behind. They had to get rid of you. Or you were so bad that you even abandoned them. And so they're the ones who are moving on. They're the ones who are doing better without you, and they don't need you, is what they want to leave you with. Although they may have placed financial hooks in you, you may still be funding their lives, their lifestyle. You may be funding them financially to help them to move on because they've got you financially. They've got you into a legal battle. So even while you may have been helping them the entire time, you may have upgraded their lives, you may have been providing them for them financially all of that time. And even now, after they've left, even though they're not even with you anymore, and you're still doing things for them, in their minds, now they're free from the abuse from you. And you're the one who needs them, even though you're the one who was always given to them and still providing to them. Of course, from a logical standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, clearly, if you're the one who's constantly giving and providing to them, not the other way around, and you're still doing that even after they've left, clearly they're the ones who need you. And this is what will lead me to their final move. Because the truth is, yeah, of course, they were the ones who needed you. You didn't need them. You were the one who was sustaining them. They weren't sustaining you. They were destabilizing you. And so whether they move on or you leave them behind, they're going to retreat within themselves. They're going to experience a lot of internal rage and bitterness. And it's going to spiral into frustration. Even if they never admit it outwardly, it's eating them up inside because inside, because of this arrogance and entitlement, and to avoid experiencing the shame, they have to twist everything around in their minds, and they have to see it as though you were the one who needed them, and they were the ones who did everything for you, but they were treated unfairly. So they have to play the victim. And that's how they then experience this bitterness and resentment, and they expect or even demand more from you. And that's why, because of this bitterness and resentment, and also deep down, of course, they know that they were the ones who manipulated and exploited you. So this will lead to their final move, which is their obsessive monitoring. They're going to be monitoring you. And many of you may not have thought about this. You may not have seen it from them. You may not be seeing it now. And whether you see it or not, in most situations, they are going to be watching you. They're going to be secretly watching your life through social media, mutual acquaintances. They may be talking to your family or friends behind your back, finding out information about you. Or they may be using other indirect means, and it's all with one sole purpose. So they want to see if you were thriving without them. That's what all of this is about. I mean, think about it, all of the things they did before leaving you, or before you managed to get away from them. They played the victim, they ran a smear campaign, financial or legal manipulations. All of this is to bring you down, to prevent you from moving on without them. Because deep down they know they were the ones who needed you. You were the one who was always providing for them all of that time. So they're the ones who need you. You don't and never did need them. So of course they know, without a shadow of a doubt, they know that you are going to be thriving without them. Of course you are, because while you are with them, they were being a leech, a parasite, feeding off you all of that time. They were being negative, pessimistic, while you were constantly giving and providing to them. They were draining you, depleting you of your energy, your health, your finances, abusing you, traumatizing you. All of this had an effect on you. It affected you mentally, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, financially. All of these things affect you. It impacts you. It keeps you down. It keeps you stuck. It's taken away from you. It's sucking off your energy. It's not encouraging you. It's not moving you forward in the right direction. It's not helping you to thrive. So of course, once you get that dead weight out of your life, once you untie that weight from around your ankle, once you get that heavy weight off your shoulders, off your back, you can finally move. You're free. You're no longer stuck. You're no longer slow. You're no longer held down by the weight of their negativity, their pessimism, their constant needs and demands. That's no longer holding you down now. So you can go, you can keep moving. You can go full speed ahead. You can utilize all of your power, energy, and enthusiasm. And they know that because the entire time you were their source of supply. You were providing them with all of this. You were fulfilling their needs. You were giving them your energy and resources. You were providing them with your life force, which naturally sustained you. But because they operate with a false character and they've got so much trauma that's unresolved, and so many things that they've done to people that they bury deep inside, where there's so much fear and shame, all of that holds them down. It weighs them back. It deprives them of their natural life force, their internal power and energy. They can't generate that from within. So that's why they need a source of supply. That's why they've got to get that from you, because they can't generate it from within. So of course, when they're no longer feeding off you, then you're able to nourish yourself. You're able to generate, to derive this life force from within. So naturally you're going to be thriving without them. Naturally, you're going to be healing and moving on. And of course, I advocate for doing the inner work and healing your childhood traumas. That's very important. But what I would say is, even if you don't do the inner work, naturally, you're going to heal to some extent. Naturally, things are going to get better. They're going to improve for you just by you not being around that negative life force that's constantly draining you and sucking off you. Just by you not being around that, naturally, you're going to get better. You're going to improve. You're going to have so much more energy. You're going to feel much more healthier, much more alive, just by not being around them. The only reason why you're kept down, why you're not feeling too good about yourself, why you're lacking energy and enthusiasm, why it's taking a drain on your finances, it's only because they're attached to you. You get them out of the picture, you get them away from you, and you're going to thrive. And they know that. They know that you're built to thrive on your own naturally. And that's why they come around you. That's why they attack you with smear campaigns. That's why they do all of these things to you, to keep you down, to keep you stuck, because they know naturally without them, you're going to thrive. Naturally without you, they're going to die out because they're not built to survive. And narcissists, they only made it this far in life by leeching off those who are more evolved, those who are more developed, those who do have the ability to develop their life force from within. That's how they managed to make it this far, by leeching off people like us, people who do have the ability to thrive on our own, because they cannot thrive on their own. They need us for that. That's where they sink their teeth into you. That's where they latch onto you for that reason. And so, of course, their final move will be to obsessively monitor you, their source of supply. And also, while they're doing that, simultaneously, they will be trying to rewrite history. They will try to reframe the entire relationship to others and to themselves, where they will cast themselves in one of two roles, or maybe both roles at the same time. And that's going to be the hero or the victim. The hero who came in and they were there to help and protect you. They did everything they could for you. But you were a problem, you weren't having it. And instead, you caused all these problems for them. So at the same time, they're also the victim. And while they're obsessively monitoring you and trying to rewrite history, they will also be hoping for your downfall. They won't want to see you moving on. They won't want to see you being happy without them. They will cling to the hope that you will fail without them, because that then feeds their need for superiority. Even if they're being silent, even if they're being covert, secretly that's what they're hoping, is that things are not going to go well for you without them. Of course, typically things are going to get a lot better for you. So yes, they may try and come back. They may try and cause all sorts of problems for you. And they're going to keep coming back until they feel like they've completely destabilized you to the point where you're just not going to be able to move on your own. And then they will just continue to check in, continue to monitor you, just to see that their plan is working and that they're sustaining this facade, this illusion, as though you're the one who can't take care of yourself. You're the one who can't move on. Because that's how they want it to be. And this is just the way they're built, the way they're wired, based on their personality, based on the way that they operate and how they choose to treat people. And it's going to result in emotional emptiness for them. And this is why they will continue to obsessively monitor you, because they have an inability to feel genuine closure or satisfaction. So they will never truly move on. They're going to carry their unhealed wounds and unresolved needs into the next cycle with the next person. And they're never going to experience satisfaction. They're never going to find happiness. That's why they need a source of supply, so that they can extract that energy from you. And that's why when you're around a narcissist that is constantly leeching off you, they're draining you, because they have to get that from you. If you're finding this video helpful so far, give it a thumbs up. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, even this obsessive monitoring, it may seem like, from our perspective, it may seem as though it's doing something for them. Like it's helping them to observe us and to watch our downfall, or to see that we're stuck, we're struggling to move on after everything they did to us. But actually, no, even their final move, even their obsessive monitoring is self-destructive. Because they're trapped in their own emotional void. They're unable to find peace or growth. They just remain stuck, while they have to watch you healing and rebuilding your life, rebuilding everything that they destroyed, while they remain stuck in their cycle. Even if you don't see it, if you were dealing with a narcissist, if you were dealing with someone who's self-absorbed and lacks empathy, someone who exploited you, someone who took advantage of you, you can be sure that without your presence in their life, without them getting everything that they got from you, they're going to remain stuck. They're never going to find peace. They're never going to grow. And it's because they are still attached to you. They're still obsessively monitoring you. And they're so focused on seeing if you're thriving without them. They're so focused on just keeping you down. They derive a sense of identity from you, and it feeds their ego. And none of this is helping them to move on. None of this is making them better. It's actually all just keeping them stuck. The only way that they're going to get better is by actually detaching from you and then going within to deal with their wounds. And these are wounds that they experienced before they met you in their childhood. The abuse or neglect that caused them to be this way, that caused them to operate with a false character, where they then had to leech off of you and use you as their source of supply. So that's what they have to do if they want to find peace and growth. Of course, as we know, they're never going to do that. Their final move is to continue obsessively monitoring you and deriving a sense of identity, power and superiority and validation from you, instead of getting those things from within. So, yeah, the obsessive monitoring is their final move. Even after the relationship has ended, they will struggle to let go. And it's because their ego cannot handle losing control or being forgotten. They want to maintain that relevance to you. And because they are extremely insecure, that's why they depended on you for this sense of security and stability. And it may be emotional stability and even financial security. They depended on you for those things. And they derived a false sense of identity from that, and it fed their ego. So that's why they have to continue attaching themselves to you so that they can continue deriving that from you. They obsessively monitor you because it gives them a sense of control by proxy. Even though they may be at a distance, they could be on the other side of the world. But as long as they have the means to watch you or to hear about you from other people, or watching you from some other indirect way, all of this gives them a false sense of control over your life, while otherwise they would feel insecure about it. Because for you to move on and have your freedom and happiness, that results in insecurity for them, because they derive a false sense of identity from controlling you. So to let go of the control means to let go of their false identity, their power, their ego. And if they were to do that, they would then have to reflect on their fear, shame, and insecurity, which eventually would then cause them to heal and experience true peace and growth. But of course, they're not going to do that. They're going to remain attached to you. They're going to remain seeking a sense of control by proxy. And that will cause them to want to be in the know about you. It will cause them to want to know if you are thriving or suffering without them. And of course, they're going to be hoping that you're suffering without them. They're not going to want to see you thrive. But even if they do see you thrive, I mean, in some cases, that may cause them to idealize you if they can see a way back into your life. If they think that you're going to give them another chance, you're going to trust them again, that they may try to come back, but then that's only just to use you. It's only because they see a benefit in coming back to you. Otherwise, they're just going to want to see you suffering. They're going to want to see you down. They're going to want to see you miserable. Because that then validates their false sense of superiority. It feeds their ego, and they need that because they derive this false sense of identity from you. So they're going to remain attached to you because it validates them. And by keeping tabs on you, they can then find ways to justify their own narrative. They can look at the things that you're doing and paint it in a certain way. And that then allows them to paint themselves as the victim. They can say that you're just being manipulative, or that you've just abandoned them without help and support. And now you're going off and you're living a fake life without them. When actually, no, they envy your success. And that's why they targeted you in the beginning, is because they envied you. They envied your success. They wanted it for themselves. They got around you, they got close to you because they wanted to be you. And that doesn't mean they wanted to be you from head to toe. Doesn't mean that they wanted to look exactly like you. It means that they wanted what you have. They wanted to do the things that you do. They wanted your qualities, your characteristics, your confidence, your courage, your strength, your power, your energy. Maybe your money and possessions as well. Maybe your business, your house. They wanted all of that for themselves. They wanted to come in and just take that for themselves. They envied it. That's what they targeted you. That's what drew them to you. You were like this bright, shiny new toy. And they just wanted to take that for themselves. But then at some point they realized that they couldn't have it. They realized that it was never going to be theirs, and that's why they then wanted to destroy it. So essentially, it's like if you imagine two children and one child is playing with a toy. The other child sees the toy and they idealize it. In their minds, that toy is perfect. It's so shiny and new. They want it for themselves. So they try to take the toy, but the other child won't let them have it because, of course, that toy belongs to them. It's their toy. But then because the other child is envious and they feel like it's unfair, they feel resentment because maybe they were never taught boundaries, separation. Maybe they were never taught to take things that don't belong to them and to respect and appreciate other people's possessions. So because they were never taught that, and because they lack empathy, they just then go and destroy the toy. And they destroy it so that no one can have it. So that they don't have to witness the other child's happiness and fulfillment with that toy. And this is exactly what the narcissist is doing. This is why at the end of the relationship, they run these smear campaigns. They discredit you. They try to sabotage you. They engage in financial and legal manipulations for this reason. Because you are this toy. Your life is the toy. Your lifestyle, your possessions, all of these things, they look at it as toys. Things that provide you with amusement, entertainment, happiness and fulfillment, joy, pleasure, satisfaction. And they envy that because they don't get to experience that satisfaction. They don't get to have what you have. They don't get to be you. So then they want to destroy you. So then it relieves their feelings of envy, of your happiness and satisfaction. So even while they're obsessively monitoring you and they're using you to validate themselves by creating this false narrative and painting themselves as the victim, it's all because they secretly envy you. And that's why when you were with them in the relationship, they couldn't acknowledge the separation. They couldn't appreciate your separate happiness, satisfaction, pleasure, accomplishments, goals, hard work, dedication. They couldn't appreciate all of that separate from themselves. They had to try and take it from you or destroy it. And that's the sickest part about it, is how they are so self-absorbed, so lacking empathy, so arrogant and entitled. And honestly, that should be the best part of a relationship, is that separation, is letting this other person be themselves and to see that all of these things belong to them. All of these things are a part of them. Those are their qualities, their abilities, their skills, their accomplishments, their hard work, their dedication, their money, their possessions. That's their career, their business. That belongs to them because they worked for it. They earned it. It's a part of them. It's their identity, their image. That's the most beautiful part of any relationship, is to be able to acknowledge that separation. Acknowledge the effort, the hard work, the dedication that someone has put in. But when you're with a narcissist, what do? They envy that in you. They want to take all of that for themselves because they're so insecure. They feel inferior to you. So they want that to be theirs because they can't create it for themselves. And that's the only reason why they got around you, is because they envy you. They envy your success. They want it for themselves. Because they can't take it. It's like the entire relationship. It's first, they kind of acknowledge you. If we go back to the analogy about the two children, it's like they acknowledge that you have this toy and they want to get close to you because they see that you have it. It looks so bright, shiny and new. So they want to get around you because of that. They see that it's providing you with happiness and fulfillment. So they want to get around you and they want to partake in that and enjoy this toy with you. The problem is that they can't. They can't enjoy that with you. They can't get the same fulfillment. And instead they get mad, hateful, envious. But that's the thing. Why do they get hateful and envious of you? And the reason why is because they can't accept that that's yours. That's why they get hateful and envious. Because they can't accept that these things belong to you. These things are a part of your identity, your self-image. That's why they're so mad. That's why they decide to take from you, sabotage you, because it's yours and they want it to be theirs. And this is how they just end up destroying their relationships. Because the entire relationship, back to the analogy about the two children, one child playing with a toy, they see that you are the toy, your life is a toy, your lifestyle, your job, your business, your money, your possessions, your happiness and fulfillment. It's all toys to them. They see that you're enjoying it, it's bringing you comfort, pleasure, satisfaction. And the entire relationship, they're trying to snatch it out of your hands. They're trying to take it for themselves. And they do get quite a bit out of you. And they take as much as they can, your money, your possessions, they steal your characteristics, everything. Maybe your friends, your connections. And then they realize that while they can try to emulate it, they're never actually you. And they're never actually generating that same happiness and fulfillment from within. They start to become aware of that, of how it's never going to be theirs. And they hate seeing it in you, knowing that that's never going to be theirs, and so it's going to be yours. So then what do? They try to destroy you. They try to destroy your happiness and fulfillment because they know it's never going to be theirs. And they can't accept the separation. They can't accept that all of these things are a part of you. That's your self-image, your hard work, your job, your money, your possessions, the clothes that you wear, the way that you do your hair. And your car, your house, all of these things that you customize to your liking, to your individual taste. All of these things are a part of your identity. They're a part of your self-image. They just can't accept that. They don't want that to be the case. In their minds, they feel like you don't deserve it because they don't look at the hard work. They're just looking at the finished product. And so they feel like they can just take all of that for themselves. And when they realize that they can't beat you, they can't get that same happiness and fulfillment as you do, because it's not theirs, no matter how much they try to pretend that it is, that's when they go to the devaluation. They start putting you down. Because initially, they mirrored you and you validated that in them. But then you start to see through it. You start to see that's not really them. They're not actually putting in the work. They haven't got the energy to actually make it a reality for themselves. So they're never going to be anything like you. It's always going to be pretend. It's just going to be make-believe. And that's why they envy this in you. That's why they try to take it away. And that's why they then just try to destroy it, because it can't be theirs. They can't have your happiness. They can't have your peace. They can't have your fulfillment and satisfaction. Even if they do take things from you. And this is why you ever wonder why, when you do everything for a narcissist, you sacrifice your entire life for them. You could spend all of your money on them. You can give them everything they want. But in the end, what will they do? They'll turn around and tell you, you did nothing. Doesn't matter if you bought them a house, a car, took them on trips around the world. They'll still turn around and tell you did nothing. How can they create this narrative in their minds? And it's because to them, it actually feels like you didn't do anything. You may have done things physically, but emotionally, it didn't do anything for them. Because they were trying to get you to share your image and lifestyle with them, because they could see that you feel good, and they were hoping that it would make them feel better. But that's just it. They wanted to be you. They wanted to steal that from you. Their happiness, their fulfillment, that was meant to come from them acknowledging that separation in you, appreciating your hard work, your dedication, your success, your possessions. That's where their happiness was meant to come from. And just supporting you on becoming the best version of yourself. And it's not just some one-sided thing. Our role, and what many of us, I'm sure we all did, was to acknowledge that separation in them and to appreciate their qualities, their gifts, their possessions, as well as a part of their identity, their self-image. And while, yes, we can partake and we can enjoy these things with them, like we can go out for a meal together, we can go on a vacation, we still acknowledge that separation. There's still that boundary there, where it's like, yes, this is yours and this is mine. But I can step over the line. I can cross the boundary if you let me. If you say that I can cross over into your world, and I can partake in your gifts. I can partake in the pleasures of this world. But what I can't do is take what you have back over this line into my world. And that's the difference. And we respect that. We learn that, yes, okay, we can go over there. We can enjoy these gifts. And we can partake in this world. We can find fulfillment in it. But we have to accept that that's not us. That's not a part of our life. That's not a part of our identity. If it is, we can just go back and build that on our own. We can create it for ourselves. We can be inspired by it. But we can't just literally take, because that's stealing. But that's what narcissists do. They steal from you. They come over, they cross the boundary. And sometimes, yes, we welcome them in. But we don't think that they're going to steal it and take it back to them and act like it belongs to them and that they own it. We don't think that they're going to do that. But that's exactly what they do. And despite that, despite everything you've done for them, everything you've given to them and everything they've stolen from you, they'll still turn around at the end and tell you that you never did anything for them, or that they didn't enjoy it because they have a void. It doesn't matter how much you do for them or how much you pour into them, they're never going to be happy. They're never going to be fulfilled because they don't like themselves. They can't enjoy anything. They're just trying to take from you, steal from you. They're not trying to share anything with you. And that's why when they realize that they can't partake, they can't get the same fulfillment as you do, so they hate and envy you, they turn against you. They start trying to steal or destroy you. 102 live viewers, give it a thumbs up. Let's get this message out there. So yeah, eventually they realize that it can't be theirs and they just seek to destroy you. They destroy you as much as they can, and then they continue monitoring you, using it to validate themselves and to justify their false narrative. They may use it to paint themselves as the victim while they are secretly envying your success. And they may also observe to see if you can put the pieces of your life back together, because they may be looking for an opportunity to reinsert themselves into your life. They may be looking for a vulnerable moment. Or in some situations, they may be looking for you to succeed again so that they can come back and derive benefits or resources from that. And they're also going to be surveilling you because they want to ensure that you're not going to expose them. Because deep down, despite what they've said to you, they know what they've done. They are aware of it. They are consciously aware that they targeted you out of envy and that they wanted your life to be theirs. And that they just robbed you and they abused you. And then they tried to destroy you. They're aware of all of this, of how they tried to come in and take from you. So then they become very paranoid and they start having to monitor you to ensure that you're not going to expose them. And of course, because of their envy, they also don't want to see you moving on. And they don't want you to go off and tell people about them and the things that they've been doing to you. And they want to maintain that relevance to you. They fear that you may outgrow them, that you may move past them, that they'll no longer be relevant to you. So this drives their need to continuously check in on your life to ensure that you don't move on. So as for you, you're going to heal, you're going to move on. You're going to realize that you never needed them. You just wanted to build, share a life with them. And you thought they had things to share with you. You didn't realize they targeted you out of envy to steal from you. And when they realized that they couldn't beat you, then they just wanted to destroy you. But yeah, you're just going to heal. You're going to move on. You're going to find peace without them, while they're going to be stuck in a destructive cycle of their own making. They're going to be obsessively monitoring you. That's going to be their final move. They're going to be watching your social media. They may even use fake accounts. They will be asking mutual friends or acquaintances about you to maintain a sense of relevance in your life, to feel like they're still significant to you, to validate themselves and to provide them with a sense of superiority. because they derive this false identity from being connected with you. And they're going to be tracking your successes and failures, hoping to see signs of struggle, because that will then fuel their narrative of superiority. They will create a false narrative to protect their fragile ego. They will rewrite history, and they will blame you entirely for the relationship's downfall. They will make it out like everything was your fault, as though they were perfect. They never did anything wrong. They didn't make one single mistake, and it was all you. And they will play the victim or hero to gain sympathy and validation from other people. So they know now that after all of the things that they've done to you, and you're aware of it, they're not going to get that same validation from you that they were getting at the beginning. So now they're going to seek validation elsewhere. They may just jump into a new relationship, or they may seek attention from other people to fill the void that you left. And this new supply is really just a distraction from you. It's a distraction from how they treated you, how they ruined you. It's to help them to avoid reflecting on the shame. But it doesn't truly satisfy their underlying emptiness. Because still what they're trying to do is take. And all the narcissist is ever going to do is take, leech off people, feed off them parasitically. That's all they're ever going to do. And even initially when they love bombed you, that was just a disguise. It concealed their true parasitic nature. So they're just still constantly looking to take, and that's why it's never going to satisfy their underlying emptiness. But to you, it may look like they're moving on. It may look like they're doing well without you, because that's what they want you to think. They want you to think that you're the problem. So they will project this confidence while they're hiding their true inner pain. Outwardly, they may appear fine or even boastful. They may boast to you about how well they're doing, but internally, they're dealing with feelings of rejection, inadequacy, and fear of losing control. They may mask their pain by focusing on external distractions, such as their work, hobbies, or superficial achievements. But again, this is all just to distract them from what's inside. And what's inside are feelings of rejection, inadequacy, and losing control. Now that's why outwardly they may appear fine or even boastful, because it's to help them to try to deal with these feelings of rejection and inadequacy. And the distractions are to provide them with a sense of control, because deep down they feel insecure. And yeah, just like the analogy with the two children, the one child who's playing with the toy and they're finding happiness with it. It's kind of like, although they try to steal the toy from you, they try to destroy it. Despite that, you're still healing, you're still moving on. So now they're obsessively monitoring you while they are resenting your ability to move on and find happiness without them. Because they're still stuck. They still have no toy to play with. They're still miserable. While they're seeing you going off and you're finding happiness, you've still got this toy to play with. You've got you. You've got an identity. You've got a self-image. You've got internal happiness. These are all things that they don't have. And it is that resentment. Like you have this inner peace, this inner happiness, fulfillment. This is what fuels their obsessive monitoring. They can't stand the idea of you thriving without them. Well, they're stuck and they can't find any happiness from within. And that's where they're constantly comparing themselves to you, constantly trying to latch on to you, leech off you for that reason. And they're just going to continue with these patterns of behavior. They're never going to go within. They're never going to self-reflect. They're never going to grow. And they're just going to repeat these same toxic behaviors with new people. They will idealize someone else and they will try and take from them. They'll try and become them. Then they will realize that they can't be them, or the other person sets a boundary. And then they will begin devaluing them and discarding them all over again. So while you're moving on, while you're growing emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, the narcissist remains stuck because they have an inability to face their flaws. And that is what keeps them stuck in this perpetual state of emptiness, where they're constantly having to seek external fixes for their internal wounds. So while you're out finding your freedom and experiencing joy, the narcissist is still just caught up in a web of their own insecurities. They're still trying to control narratives and fill their internal void, even though they may appear fine on the surface. But because of these patterns of behavior, they remain stuck. They have this inability to truly grow. Even though it may seem like they've moved forwards, they may have a new relationship, they may be married, they may have children now, they may have created this facade of success, but it's only surface level. And what they can display on the surface, it can look more fun, more exciting than anything that you think that you're experiencing, or anything that you may portray on your social media if you do like to share your posts, your experiences with your friends or family. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But yeah, what they're doing, it may look far more exciting than what you've got going on. The problem is that it's all surface level. It doesn't reflect genuine growth or emotional closure. Everything's just on the surface. It's all a distraction from their own inner turmoil. So they struggle to move on because they lack self-reflection. They avoid introspecting. Everything is externally focused. It's all about projecting their insecurities, their deficiencies, flaws onto you, and deriving validation, a sense of superiority from putting you down, from creating this false narrative about you. And that's why they never experience peace. They never experience true growth, because they avoid going within. They avoid introspection. They avoid looking at themselves and seeing the problems that they have caused, the things that they've been doing to you. They avoid going within and acknowledging that, and instead they keep doing the same thing. They keep repeating the same toxic behaviors, which reinforces this toxicity. It just fuels their disorder and causes them to become worse. It causes them to become even more bitter and resentful. And it's all because confronting their own flaws and emotional wounds, it's too painful for their fragile ego. And without that self-awareness, they cannot learn or grow from past experiences, to where they then end up with this unresolved inner void. They may seem confident externally, but this sense of self-worth is built on external validation. They've got to get it externally. And, you know, it's kind of funny just thinking about that, because for me, I actually find that it's the opposite. I find at this point in my healing journey, external validation, it's not much different to a criticism. It just takes me out of myself. It leaves me dependent on someone else. And I find it much more fulfilling to validate myself. I find it much more fulfilling to self-reflect. When I'm around narcissists and they're pulling me out of myself and everything is externally focused, that's exactly what it does. It depletes my self-worth. It makes me feel insecure. Nothing can compete with my own self-validation. And if that's the same for you, it just reveals that you are quite far along on your healing journey. But as for the narcissist, their sense of self-worth is built on external validation. They can't generate anything from within. And that's why they're so externally focused. That's why they're constantly projecting their insecurities, because there's no inner sense of self-worth. So they're projecting their insecurities, their inadequacies onto you. And then putting you down validates their self-worth. It makes them feel better about themselves. And while that may look good at a surface level, it may provide them with a temporary sense of fulfillment, but they never actually address the deep-rooted insecurity that is driving their behavior, that's causing them to act in that way, that's causing them to project their insecurities onto you. It's causing them to put you down. It's causing them to seek this external validation and to derive a sense of superiority and a false sense of identity from you. They never address the deep-rooted insecurities that are driving these behaviors. Instead, they just seek a new supply to temporarily fill the void, and that's why they just run through the same cycle again, the idealization, the devaluation, and the discard. And that's why they're so jealous. That's why they're so possessive and controlling. Even after the relationship ends, they can't emotionally release you, because by doing that, they feel like they lose the control, and they need that control to get the validation, to get the narcissistic supply, to get a sense of superiority that they cannot generate from within, because they've got so many insecurities that they're refusing to acknowledge or deal with. And that's why they will continue to obsessively monitor you and smear you, because that allows them to maintain a sense of dominance and superiority, even if it's from afar. And this is why they will continue to recycle the same patterns. Instead of growing or changing, they're going to repeat their toxic behaviors with new targets. The cycle of abuse will continue, and it will leave them stuck in a loop where they're just doing the same things again and again, just for validation, just so that they can feel superior for a moment. But it's not resolving their unresolved issues. And this is why, as I've spoken about in past live videos, and there was even a title of some of my videos how we talked about the narcissist will be haunted by their actions and by your absence. It's the truth. I know it may seem sometimes as though YouTubers are making these videos just to make the victims feel better, just to provide you with some validation, some closure. But this is actually the truth. This is the raw, absolute truth. They are haunted by their actions. They are haunted by the things that they did to you. And they're haunted by your absence. They're haunted by you leaving them. And they're also haunted by their envy and resentment of you. And that's why they just can't stand to see you heal, thrive, or move on. It's the last thing they want to see. They don't want to see you being happy without them. They want to see you down. They want to see you miserable for the rest of your life. That's how they want it to be for you, because they're so insecure. They're so envious. And it goes back to boundaries, separation. They can't acknowledge you as a separate person. They can't acknowledge your own separate qualities, characteristics, quirks, mannerisms, money, possessions, job, business, connections, friends, relationships. They can't acknowledge all of these things as separate to them. And letting it be that way, letting you be separate for them, rather than seeing you as an extension of themselves. And it's because they have an arrested emotional development. They can't recognize you as a separate person. They have to use you to fulfill themselves because they're not a complete human. Well, as for me, I can honestly say, I mean, as I've spoken about in many of my videos, I've had several narcissistic exes, and I spoke about it in some of my early videos, how I had to witness myself with my own eyes. As I was moving on, I was healing, I was self-reflecting, things were getting better for me. I had to see one of my exes, who was meant to be, things were getting better for her and she was going to be a lawyer. The last I saw of her is that she was obese and she was smoking weed. And another one of my exes, she was training to be a nurse. The last I saw of her is that she was working in a supermarket. And none of these things made me feel any better about myself. It didn't make me feel superior. I mean, it kind of made me feel like, yeah, you know, like I'm in a better situation, of course. But I didn't want it to be that way, because I saw it as though this was someone who we were building and growing together. This is someone who I wanted to make better. That's how I viewed my narcissistic exes. And so, of course, you know, to see them in that condition, one of them obese and smoking weed, and the other one who was working in a supermarket while we were together, they were so much better, so much happier, so much brighter, so much more optimistic about the future. And so to see my narcissistic exes in that condition, it broke my heart. I didn't want that for them, even though they're no longer a part of my life. Even if they've moved on with someone else, even if they're married, I want to see them happy. I want to see them getting better. That's what I want for everyone. The only thing I don't like is, you know, sometimes they came back and they were kind of acting like I spoke about. One of my narcissistic exes, she said she was living her best life. That just disgusted me, because I know it's not true. I know it's just something she's trying to boast about to make me feel jealous, when it's like, I'm not that way anyway. I want to see my narcissistic exes move on. I want to see them happy, even if it's without me. But I want it to be real. I don't want it to be pretend. I want to see people actually getting better and moving on, and I want it to be genuine. And that's how it should be. Now, I get it. It may not be that way now for many of you. It will take time for you to get to that point. And it's completely normal after the abuse that you've been through. I can tell you that it is normal for you to have thoughts of wishing to see everything go bad for them. It's normal for you to have even these vengeful thoughts of wanting to kill the narcissist. And honestly, I don't blame you for having those thoughts. I mean, they're thoughts that you can't even control. I mean, after the things they've done to you, I'm sure many of you may want to see them dead. That's because you're still hurt, you're still healing. And that's okay, it takes time for you to heal. Of course, I felt that way too earlier on my healing journey. But once you get to a certain point in your healing, you can then let that go and just wish the best for them and hope that they figure things out and move on. That's how you know that you've progressed on your healing. It's when you're able to let things go. Of course, it is a process. It takes time, and it's completely normal. It's completely natural for you to harbor feelings of even envy, resentment, vengeance. That's completely normal. What's not normal is to let those feelings take over you and lead to destructive behaviors where you're going out of your way, seeking revenge, trying to ruin another person's life. Even though, yes, they may have done things to you, we have to do things the right way because we want to heal. We want to move on. We want to become healthier. And of course, just engaging in vengeful or destructive actions, that's not going to make anyone healthier. Yes, it might make you feel better initially, but afterwards it's going to make you feel worse. That's why I always advise against revenge. That's what narcissists do. Because for the rest of their lives, they're going to be haunted by envy and resentment. They're going to be haunted by seeing you heal, thrive, or move on. It's going to trigger their insecurity and envy. They cannot bear the idea that you're happy without them because it challenges their belief in their own importance. And that's just it. They can't just take a back seat. They can't just sit back and see someone else moving on. And it's because they're not healing, they're not progressing. And that's just it. If you are actually healing, if you're actually progressing, and you're letting go of the feelings of resentment, then while you may be moving on in one direction, in one path, and maybe you're seeing your narcissistic ex, I mean, usually with them, it's a facade anyway. It's not going to be real. It's not going to be genuine. But you're seeing them moving on somewhere. You can accept that because you've got your own path. You've got your own journey. And things are looking bright ahead for you. Things are getting better for you. You're working on yourself. With them, it's always a crabs in a bucket mentality. They're always trying to pull you back in. They're always trying to pull you back down because they've experienced zero emotional growth, zero development. They're still exactly the same because they're still holding on to you. They're still traumatized from their childhood. They're still haunted by their feelings of envy and resentment because they wanted to be you. They wanted to steal from you. They wanted to destroy you because they derive validation and a sense of superiority from you. Their false identity is tied to you. So that's why for them, they won't be able to move on from you. Their final move will be to obsessively monitor you. Well, as for you, you're going to heal. You're not going to be thinking twice about them. You're going to be moving on. You're going to be going full speed in a new direction towards something positive because you can let go of the feelings of envy, resentment, the bitterness, all of the things they did for you. You can let that go. I just know that they were the abusers. They hurt you. They exploited you. That's not going to get them anywhere good. Engaging in destructive behaviors, that's not healthy. That's not going to help them. It's going to make them worse. Well, as for you, you can let that go. You can find peace. And that's going to be better for you. And that's what we want to do. We want to promote peace. Letting go of things that happened in the past. And of course, that doesn't mean you let them back in. You keep them out of your life because they caused all of this harm to you. They didn't even try to make amends. They left you in a worse condition. So the last thing you should do is let them back in. Don't give them another chance because they're still hurt. They're still broken. They're only going to hurt you. So leave them out. Let them go off and hurt someone else. Let them display this facade to you that they're so happy now and they're moving on. All they're really doing is hurting someone else. That's all they're ever going to do. because they refuse to take accountability. They haven't accepted the things that they've done. They haven't been disciplined. They haven't reformed. They haven't been rehabilitated because they haven't been held accountable. They haven't been punished. And that's the most important part, is that accountability, personal responsibility. That's one of the first steps to our healing. We're not going to get anywhere without that. And that's what I advocate for all of us as victims, is to take that personal responsibility. Is that, yes, I mean, we were in that situation. Yes, we didn't know at the time, but we do know now. And so what are we going to do now? We've got to detach from it. We've got to focus on ourselves. And of course, that's something they're never going to do. They're never going to take personal responsibility, accountability for anything. And that's why they're never going to move forward. And they're going to be haunted by feelings of envy and resentment for the rest of their lives. They're going to remain stuck for life. Their lives, their mental state, it's always going to be this way. They're never going to develop. They're never going to evolve. And, you know, it's not that I want them to remain stuck, although, you know, people who do these things to people and they still remain envious and resentful, and after what they did to you, and they refuse to take accountability, they refuse to compensate for your losses, then, you know, I used to feel bad for them. But at this point, it's like, you know, you made your own bed, now you have to lie in it. If you want to go on that destructive path where you're causing destruction and you're not acknowledging it, you're not taking accountability, you're not trying to be better, you're just blaming someone else who it's not even their fault, and they were actually the victim, then it's your own problem. It's how you got to look at it. It's something they have to deal with on their own. And of course, they're never going to deal with it. They're going to be stuck that way for life. And, you know, it's sad. I can feel compassion for them from afar. You know, I wouldn't want to go through that myself. And that's why I did the inner work. So I can show compassion from afar. But that's just how it has to be for them. And they've made that decision for themselves. And you cannot help or fix them. You've already tried. You did your best to help them, to get them to see themselves, the errors of their ways. You tried. And that's all you can do. You can't force them. To some degree, you can force a child. You can force a child to, I mean, maybe these days you can't, but, you know, the right way is that, yes, you should be allowed to discipline your child. You should be allowed to force them to not eat ice cream every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yes, the child may like sweet things. They may like to eat ice cream all the time. But as parents, we should say no. We should just, you know, it's not even a discussion. It's just, you can't. You have to eat the right food. You have to have the right diet. You have to be cruel to be kind. Unfortunately, we can't do that with grown adults. We can't force them. I mean, yes, if they break the law, then, you know, if you manage to deal with a narcissist through the law, which is very difficult, it rarely happens, but if you manage to do that, then maybe you could force some temporary change in them. But ultimately, as adults, they're the ones who have to do the inner work. And that's how, with children, yes, we can inspire change in them. We can kind of, we can cultivate them, we can nurture them in a certain direction because, they're growing, so we can mold them, we can shape them. The problem with the narcissist is that they're maladaptive, they're resistant to change, and they're also already fully formed, and they have a wall. They won't be vulnerable, they won't let you in. And that's why we can't cultivate them, we can't mold them, we can't develop them in the right way. And that's how they can only do that by themselves. I mean, they need a therapist, and they need to be open with that therapist. They need to be vulnerable with them. They need to be honest. And then that person can help to mold them to become healthy. And that's the problem, is that most narcissists are never going to give anyone that opportunity. They're far too paranoid, far too distrustful. They will discredit the therapist. They will see it as though they're just trying to manipulate them. And that's why typically we're just never going to see any change with narcissists. And they're just going to continue to live in this false reality. They will rewrite the past. They will portray themselves as the victim. They will blame you to keep them tethered to the same stories and grievances. And this is the very thing that prevents them from genuinely letting go. It prevents them from healing and moving on. It's that they can't accept the truth, the raw truth, the facts. That's why they can't move on. And that's why it's so important for us to know the truth. It's not just about your truth, what you think is true, what you feel is true. That doesn't matter, because as long as you just think that way, you're going to be stuck in a false reality, requiring external validation, because deep down, despite what you tell yourself, that truth still lies within you. Because we all have the ability to know what is true. We can all perceive the truth. And, of course, there's some mental illnesses where people may be clinically insane. But even if we go deeper into that, at some level, it is denial. It is a refusal to acknowledge the truth. And it does appear as though every human being inherently knows the truth at some level, at least from my research. It tends to be that they're just in denial. And that's what it is with narcissists. When we look deeper into it, the core of the disorder is denial. And they know that they are denying it. They're not letting it in. They're gaslighting themselves. And that reveals that inherently we all have some connection to the truth. And it's that dissonance, it's that, what's the word? It's that conflict within themselves between deep down what they know to be true and what they're telling themselves. And that's what perpetuates the disorder, with the arrogance, the grandiosity, the sense of superiority, is this conflict, this dissonance between deep down what they know to be true, and then on the surface what they're telling themselves is true. And that's why we see such extreme, exaggerated behaviors, because they're trying to fight it instead of just accepting it, that they are wrong. And then actually what they feel deep down inside, what they're suppressing, that is the truth. And the truth is that they've been lying to themselves for a very long time. They live in a false reality. They're not the victim. They're not the hero. They are a manipulator, an abuser. And that's just the sad truth of it. And, that doesn't mean in every single situation, they've always been the abuser. No, in some situations, even a narcissist can be a victim, such as in their childhood, they were a victim then. But with many of you, I mean, you know yourself, trust your instincts. You were manipulated, you were deceived, you were exploited. Trust your instincts, realize that that is the truth, and you will begin to move on. You will begin to feel much better. You will find peace within yourself. You will find that because it's the truth. And you're not going to have any conflict, any dissonance with it. Well, as for the narcissist, they will never be able to truly love or bond. They will always struggle with forming authentic emotional connections because they're inauthentic. They're lying to themselves. And so without this capacity for true intimacy, their idea of moving on is just about finding new validation rather than forming meaningful new relationships. But what I will say is that I also find that in myself. Even though I'm someone who lives in truth and I'm authentic, for me, finding something new, a new relationship, tends to be more just about validation. Even though I don't really need validation. I mean, I find myself searching for connection, but it always ends up just being superficial. And I know that the reason for that is because while I am authentic, I'm truthful, I'm honest. I mean, I'm the type of person who would just spill the beans on everything in my life. I just trust and confide in anyone. And of course, at this point, I've had to try and stop doing that. Stop sharing all of the personal information about myself and learn to be more private. Because of course, not everyone deserves to have such an intimate connection with you. And they will abuse it. They will take advantage of it. And I've had to learn that over time. But, that's the issue I've had, is that while I can be honest and authentic, I've realized that most people can't. Most people are living a lie. Most people are living in a false reality. And that's how I have, I found great benefit in validating myself. And sorry about that, just got cut off. But yes, I have found benefit and comfort in validating myself by realizing that, even though I'm honest and authentic, I can't find that through true authenticity outside of myself. So I find it within. And that's led me to become who I am today, where I am now a source of validation and comfort for so many people around the world. And unfortunately, that also triggers a lot of people. So my truth, my authenticity, which naturally leads me having a very high vibration. I vibrate primarily at the frequency of love and compassion, where I have very high empathy, very high sensitivity. And I just want to share my love with the world. Of course, I've learned to limit that now because that does get me into trouble. It attracts predators. It attracts low vibrational people who want to leech off me rather than doing the other work. But also through the channel, it attracts people who have been abused, who have been hurt, and who are seeking healing. And through this gift, which is really just my natural high vibration of being authentic and truthful, that's what gives me the ability to heal you. And that's why I'm so raw, so direct. I just tell it as it is. And sometimes, yes, the truth may cause you pain. It may hurt you even more initially. It may just bring the trauma back all over again, because it's kind of like ripping off the bandage so that the wound can fully heal. But it is necessary. And I still stick to that way of being to this day, of being cruel to be kind. Well, I guess some of the things that I say and the way that I present my videos, it can be highly emotional, dramatic, even painful at times. But I do believe that at the core of my content is love. But for me, as an authentic person, I do find that most of my relationships are superficial. And I also struggle with forming authentic emotional connections, because while I'm willing to be authentic, most people aren't. And that's been a pattern that I've experienced throughout my life. I always wanted to be honest. I always wanted to tell the truth. And other people just weren't ready to hear it, or they didn't want to hear it. And maybe that's why I really enjoy getting on here and making these videos. And if you look back at my content over the past 6.5 years, every single thing that I've said, word for word, is the absolute truth. Or at the very least, it's what I believed was the truth at that time. Not once have I ever told a lie or tried to consciously deceive anyone. Now that's in 6.5 years, 4,500 videos. And I just like to celebrate that, just how authentic I am, because I think that's one of my true qualities. That's why I attract a lot of predators who, they try to discredit me, try to turn me into something that I'm not. They try to destroy my authenticity, because it's such a rare quality in the world today, and it exposes people who are manipulative and deceptive. So, for me personally, it's all about being authentic. But I will admit, sometimes, and it's not that I'm trying to deceive anyone, but sometimes I do kind of shapeshift myself. I do try to mold myself into what I think is going to be more comfortable for other people. And that's because I was conditioned that way as a child. As I spoke about, I was always a truth teller. I was always authentic my entire life. But as I said, a lot of people, they weren't ready to hear it, or they didn't want to hear it. So then I just kept quiet. I silenced myself. I molded myself into what they wanted me to be. I walked on eggshells around them. And I did that for them. Not because I want to be unauthentic, not because I don't want to be truthful, but because they're fragile, they're insecure. And so it's not that I'm trying to be fake. It's because it's like I'm not allowed to be myself. I'm not allowed to be me. And I'm sure many of you have had to go through that as well. And, this is what happens, is when you're around narcissists, they will impose a false self onto you. And you can fight it as much as you want. They will become even more aggressive to push you into this role that they want you to play, where you have to be quiet. They have to maintain this code of silence. So you can't be you. You can't be authentic. And that's one of the most painful things for me in my life, is that how I had to suppress my authenticity. And, I know this is a huge debate in the world today. It's kind of like, what is your authenticity? And what I would say is that, and, this is very controversial, but these are my personal opinions, my personal beliefs. And we're all entitled to that. And mine is that homosexuality, transgenderism, and having these like multiple identities and all of this kind of stuff, none of that is authenticity to me. All of this stuff, it stems from childhood trauma. So I don't see any of that as authentic or anything that unites with freedom of expression. It's all trauma to me. So I don't see that as authenticity. And even within myself, I mean, I look at the things that I've learned from my childhood and the things that were conditioned in me, and I see that as separate from me, as wounds that I need to heal. Because, you know, even though these things, they may bring shame to us, that doesn't mean that we have to accept it as a part of ourselves and then parade it around with a sense of pride, as though now we accept it. And it's kind of like sometimes you see these t-shirts that people wear these days, like maybe they were called a certain name when they were younger, and then they just accept it as a part of themselves, as a part of their identity. And they parade it around as though now they're being authentic, when it's like, no, that's not you. You were told that was you. You let someone else define you. Your true authentic being is when you define you. And that's you being authentic. Now, these days, we're seeing so many homosexuals, so many transgenders, and they're letting the world define them. They've been made to feel insecure in who they really are, whether it's as a man, as a woman, as a straight man, a straight woman. They've been made to feel insecure in that. When what they need to do is to find security in their true identity, rather than trying to feel more comfortable in something else. When it's just what they've done is they've just abandoned their true self because they felt like it wasn't good enough. It is good enough. It just, the way it is today, it's like you have to be good enough for everyone. You have to get all of the likes on Instagram, and if you don't, then you have to change yourself. When no, you just have to accept that maybe the real you isn't that loud, isn't that obnoxious, isn't someone who's going to get all of the attention, isn't someone who everyone's going to view as worthy, and that's okay. Unfortunately, the way the world is today, everyone wants the attention, and they're willing to abandon themselves to get it. Now, the truth is, you know, when you're being authentic, when you're being real, and you are getting attention, you are getting validation for that, you're not really going to care that much about it. I mean, yes, you know, I don't even really think about it that much, but, you know, while I have 190,000 subscribers and over 50 million views, it's not something that I'm so excited about every day. You know, while I do appreciate your comments, your feedback, your support, of course I do. But it's kind of just normal to me. It's not like such a big deal because it's a part of my natural identity for me to get on here and to just give the raw truth to you and to be authentic. It's just me being me. And of course, you know, if I didn't get so many views from doing this, it would still just be me. It would just be me in my own little world. But that's how it is with most people today. And, you know, it's not that you can't do that. You can. You can create a separate persona. Like you can have an online identity. You can have one side of you that is like following these trends and getting all of the views. I've had another part of you in real life who is just the authentic you. But it can be very difficult to manage. And also, if you are just doing it for validation, it does cause you to lose touch with your true self. And that's why it's so important to self-validate. So again, I know I went a bit off topic there, but I'm just sharing with you my thoughts, my perspectives on this, and remember, these are my personal opinions. So I'm not against anyone who is homosexual or transgender. I mean, this is legal in the world today. It's socially accepted. And I personally am not against it. We live in a free world and I accept everyone and their choices. Personally, for me, if I had my own community, I would prefer that everyone was heterosexual and in the same gender that they were born in. But then I have to accept that separation and that everyone is not the same as me. Everyone deals with things in different ways. And if someone chooses to be homosexual or transgender, I'm not their parent. And it's, I'm not in charge. It's not my country. So I really have no say in it. But for me personally, and what I would advise to, especially to younger people who are starting to sway in that direction, thinking that they may be homosexual or that they may be a different gender, what I would say is that instead of changing the outside to reflect the inside, why don't you explore your internal landscape and find out what happened to make you that way? What happened to cause you to be something than what is natural? Because if we look at nature, we will see that other animals, mammals, they're not homosexual. They're not confused about their gender. They're not thinking in that way. They accept who they are and just the way that they're born. Like if you look at a cat, I mean, a cat is never thinking to be homosexual or questioning their gender. It just doesn't happen. So, those are my views on it. And I mean no offense to anyone from expressing these views. And I'm not trying to force my opinions onto anyone or challenge anyone. These are just my personal perspectives. And of course, in a free world that we have today, where people can be homosexual or transgender, if those are your views, then that means that you should also respect my views, because it's the same thing. If you are allowed to be free and have your views, then that means that I should be allowed to have mine. So that's what I'd like to say on that. But regardless of that, I have had many homosexual clients, and I know that I have had transgender viewers as well, and everyone is welcome in my community. And I hope that you do benefit from the support that I provide, and also narcissists are narcissists, whether they're homosexual, whether they're transgender. That doesn't mean that they're any more or less than those who are not. But yeah, you're going to heal, you're going to grow and rebuild, and the narcissist is going to remain in their own emotional stagnation because they have an inability to address their wounds or embrace change. And this is what keeps them stuck in the cycle of superficial distractions, envy, and obsessive behaviors. Because true moving on requires self-awareness and growth, which are things that they resist at all costs. And, as I'm talking about this, many of you may notice the similarities between what I'm saying and the homosexual and transgender community. And I had a client who was homosexual, and even he spoke about it himself, how narcissism is prevalent among homosexuals. Because you just look at the gay pride community. It's kind of like they're taking their shame, because it was once shameful, and turning it into pride, as though now they're superior because they're gay or because they're transgender. That's the way it's going now, is that now everything that was once oppressed is now something to be proud of. It's superior. Why can't it just be normal? Why can't it just be, okay, yes, you're homosexual, you're transgender, so what? You're the same as everyone else. Just as heterosexuals or people who identify with the gender that they were born into. You're just normal, you're just equal. Why does that have to make you special? And again, that's trauma. So just another thing I'd like to address, if anyone noticed the similarity between what I'm describing here and what I previously stated. But yeah, back onto narcissists, I mean, they will act superior, and as though you need them, but really they are the ones who can't move on. Even though they have this facade of superiority, it stems from their deeply rooted insecurities and a fragile sense of self. So them acting superior is really just a mask for them to hide their vulnerabilities. They struggle to move on from you because you were a part of their identity. They derived a sense of self-worth from you. You were a key piece of their supply. So losing you feels like losing a part of themselves. And because they didn't see the relationship as a partnership in which you were both building and growing together, they viewed it as an extension of their own ego. So when you leave them, it disrupts their self-image. And also, they can't deal with rejection. They're terrified of abandonment and rejection. So when they lose you, it's a blow to their ego. It causes a narcissistic injury, which they cannot process because they refuse to go within. They refuse to self-reflect. So they seek validation and to be soothed externally for that. And either way, even if they were the ones to discard you, they're still going to see it as a personal failure or a loss of control. They won't be able to move on because they have to feel superior to you. And their sense of superiority depends on them feeling better than you, even after they've ended the relationship. So if you're moving on and you're happy, healing and thriving, then that contradicts their belief that there's someone that you can't live without. So they can't stand to see you moving on and being happy, because then that tells them that you can live without them, which challenges their sense of superiority to you. And this is why they obsess over proving to themselves and other people that they are still better than you. When actually all of this doesn't separate them from you, it actually keeps them tied to you mentally. And, despite what they think in their minds, the reality is, and this isn't about superiority on your part, this is just actually the truth. The truth is that you really are superior to them. you really are better than them. And this isn't about ego. This isn't about one-upping them. This is just the truth that has to be accepted, is that you do represent what they lack, because you're moving on, you're healing, you're finding peace, you're building a better life. So of course, yes, you are better, you are superior to them. And this isn't about ego. This is just what the truth is. You're doing things that they can't do. You're growing, you're self-reflecting, you're achieving genuine happiness. And they continue in a state of inferiority, but instead of learning from it, instead of learning from what you're doing, instead of seeing that you're healing, you're finding peace, you're building a better life, you're growing, self-reflecting, and achieving genuine happiness, instead of them seeing that and learning from it, they dwell on it with envy and resentment. And that's how they remain in an inferior state. And all they do is just rewrite the narrative, because they can't just let you go and move on. For them to do that, it means that they have to accept that you have your own agency, your own autonomy, your own separate life outside of them. And of course, they want to control the narrative of who you are and who they are and what the relationship was. So they hold on to this obsession of you, which stems from them trying to win the breakup, or to ensure that they are remembered and that they remain relevant as the one in control. And of course, because they have this dysfunctional ego, they've got to have a scapegoat. They've got to have someone to blame, because they struggle to take accountability. So they've got to keep you in their minds to justify their behavior and to blame you for their failures or shortcomings. So no matter how much time goes by, you will always remain this unresolved problem in their minds, which allows them to avoid deeper self-reflection. Because as long as they see you as this problem, they're never going to go within, they're never going to resolve anything, and they're going to remain stuck. But ultimately, at the core of it all, is that they fear irrelevance. They do not want to be forgotten. And that's why they remain attached to you. They continue monitoring you. They hold on to you. They keep popping up because they do not want to be forgotten. They do not want to be irrelevant. And it really just defines their entire reality, their entire existence. They derive a false identity from it. It feeds their ego. So for any time you move on, you stop thinking about them, and then they start to feel irrelevant. They start to feel like they're being forgotten. Then they feel like they've lost their grip on reality, as they see it in their minds, because their reality is being relevant to you. Their reality revolves around not being forgotten. So if they're forgotten, if they're irrelevant, they feel like they don't exist. And that's why when they're trying to move on, it's like they're in a fight for their lives. It's life or death to them. They'll do anything to get you back, to hold on to you. They'll sabotage you. They'll sabotage themselves. They'll just destroy everything, because their entire reality, their entire existence revolves around them being relevant to you. And that's the only identity that they have. That's what supports the false identity. It revolves around you. It's tied to you, because they view you as an extension of themselves. You're their narcissistic supply. And that's why they just want to keep you down. They want to keep you stuck. And they hate seeing you succeed, because your success without them feels like a direct challenge to their superiority. And that's what their false reality, their false existence, their false identity is all about. It's all about them being superior, because deep down they know and feel that they are inferior to you. So this superiority is just an illusion. And it's designed to protect their fragile ego. Because initially their childhood trauma, it was that they couldn't deal with the rejection. So they created a mask, a false self, an illusion of superiority to protect their fragile ego. But really, I mean, this fact that they can't move on, it tells you everything that you need to know. It reveals the truth about them, which is that their sense of power and worth is dependent on you and not internal strength. And of course, it can't be dependent on internal strength because the reality is that they're not superior. The reality is that it is a false identity, so it cannot be supported from within. It requires external validation. And that's why they've got to get their sense of power and worth from you. And that's why they can't move on. And this is why they can't stand it when you detach and thrive, because then it forces them to confront their greatest fear, which is that they're not as powerful, important, or superior as they claim to be. And, that just goes right back to their childhood, because that's what it was all about. They wanted to feel validated. I mean, initially they wanted, as a child does, a child wants to feel validated, acknowledged, admired by their parent. And there's nothing wrong with that. As a part of our evolution is that we need to feel that way. We need to feel like we're a part of something. We need to feel safe and secure, wanted, loved, accepted by our parents. That's healthy. They didn't get that from their parent, though. They were neglected, abused. So then instead of seeking the love and connection, they realized they couldn't get that from their parents. So then they settled for just the pure validation based on their false image, their false self, their false persona of performing, of the fantasy. And that just revolved around them seeking a sense of power, importance, and superiority, potentially to other siblings or other children at school, for example. And their false self just developed from that point to now what you see today, where it's just all about seeking power. They settled for power because they couldn't get the love and connection that they really wanted. And that's just it. Everyone, it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter how beautiful, how wealthy, how successful. It doesn't matter who they are. At the core of it all, everyone seeks love and connection. That's what they really want. But the problem is when people feel inadequate, when they feel like they're not worthy of it, then they just settle for power. Now that's what narcissists are. They settle for power rather than genuine connection because they feel like they're not worthy of it. They feel like if they were to reveal their true selves, if they were to be vulnerable, you would never accept them. And, that's just it, is when someone is truly worthy of love and acceptance, when they're vibrating at the frequency of love, they're not going to hurt anyone. They're not going to do anything bad or wrong. All of these negative and dysfunctional, harmful behaviors, all of this stems from unresolved childhood trauma. It stems from fear and shame. So if they were to be vulnerable, initially maybe people wouldn't accept them. But then gradually they could heal, they could grow, and they could become healthy to where they no longer engage in dysfunctional behaviors. And then they would be accepted, if everyone else is being authentic and vibrated at the frequency of love, then we would accept them. And naturally they would want to do what is necessary to make amends and to be accepted. in a perfect world. Unfortunately, I mean, most people in this world, they do have childhood trauma. They do feel like they're unworthy of true love and connection. So instead, they do seek power. But for me, at this point in my healing journey, I mean, I think there's nothing more beautiful than when people can let go of striving for power. When they can just drop their swords and just harmonize with each other. Unfortunately, we can't always do that. And I explored this in a live video a few months ago, talking about, narcissists, they can't be vulnerable. They don't wear their hearts on their sleeves. But, can we do that? Should we do that? And I concluded that no, we shouldn't. Because what's going to happen is, if you want to compromise, if you want to end the war, you can do that all you want. You could be the first person to drop your sword and shield, and what's going to happen? The narcissist may mask themselves as though they want love and connection, but secretly they're holding on to their sword, just waiting for you to drop your guard so that they can then stab you and kill you and have that power and superiority over you. That's what they're waiting for you to do. And that would be very sad, because then you can't share your love with the world, with people who can actually receive it, with people who aren't too afraid to drop their guard. And that's just the situation that we find ourselves in. Is that, that's what creates the conflict as well. That's what perpetuates it. It's like, yes, I mean, while we may want to be vulnerable, we may want to drop our swords and just come together. We should be aware that if we do that, they may just then annihilate us, because they're not really seeking love or connection. They are seeking power. And it's because they are traumatized. They do have childhood wounds that haven't been resolved. And so it's sad, but that's how it is. We have to hold on to our guard. We can't be vulnerable around most people, because that's what's going to happen. They will hurt you. They will stab you in the back. And I wish it wasn't that way, but that's the way that it is. And you just have to use discernment. You have to be able to detect who you can be vulnerable around and who you can't. And in most situations, well, really in every situation, you're going to be taking a risk. And of course, even for myself, making this channel, being vulnerable online, I have taken a huge risk here. And I have experienced a lot of setbacks from doing this. But I don't regret it, and I'm glad that I've had this opportunity to share my vulnerability with you. Because I know that by me getting on here and being vulnerable and authentic, it's healing to you. Because, this is what the narcissist needed, what many of us needed as a child, is just an honest, vulnerable, authentic parent. That's what heals us. Love heals us. And what's more loving than to be open, to be vulnerable? And, that's the gift that I have to share with you, is my vulnerability. It's my love. It's kind of like a cat who feels safe enough around you to expose their stomachs. The stomach is the most vulnerable part of a cat. So if they expose that to you, it's because they feel safe around you. And that's really what love is. It's exposing ourselves. It's exposing something to you when you could use this against me. So many things that I have shared with you in this video that I've confided in you, you could use it against you, against me. You could use my love. You could weaponize it against me. And unfortunately, that's how it is with narcissists, is that you confide in them, you open up to them, you share with them your love. And because of their own insecurities, their own feelings of shame and inadequacy, their childhood wounds, that is why they reject your love, because they feel like, as soon as they see you're giving your love to them, then they start to think, yes, but if I accept your love, you may then see it as though I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of it. My love may not be good enough for you, is how they think. And that's why they then reject your love and they weaponize it against you and use it to tear you down. So that's why they do that. But as for me, this is just who I am. This is just a part of my identity, is to be vulnerable, is to expose myself to you, is to be vulnerable. And, I've been attacked throughout my life for being vulnerable with people. And that's why, at this point, I do try to use more discernment. And I advise you to do the same, not to just be mindless, because love does make us blind to these tactics. When we're loving, we think that everyone's going to be the same way, not realizing that they have their own childhood wounds and insecurities, which may cause them to lash out at us and weaponize our love against us. So, of course, don't just be vulnerable with anyone. You're pretty much just handing them a gun, a loaded weapon. You're giving them ammunition. So don't just open yourself up to anyone. Because, of course, to do that, you may then be sacrificing gifts that you could have invested into someone else, someone who could have reciprocated your love. 121 live viewers. I've hoped you've got something out of my raw message for you today. If you have, show your love by giving it a thumbs up. How's everyone doing in the live chat? Daslow Oslo says it's like how your rib cage protects your heart. Any detect what is sacred. Yes, that's right. I mean, that's why we have the rib cage there. That's why it's so strong, because, of course, without the heart, we can't live. But yes, we must protect our hearts. Even though you may feel like you just want to share your love with the world, it's not a good idea. It will get you hurt. And, you could have given your love to someone else who would have been able to see it, receive it, and appreciate it. Kim H says, we are human, and at some point you get sick of meeting narcs. They're everywhere. No, I know that, and that's why I say to use discernment. You have to remain guarded. It's very important for our survival, and the reality is that the reason why we see so many narcissists these days is because love was a weakness for many people who gave their hearts. They dropped their swords, and then narcissistic people went in for the kill. And those were our ancestors, loving, compassionate people who are not alive today. But you could see it as though they weren't strong, they weren't built to survive. Or is it more that just the narcissists are fake? They deceive people. And that's why we look around at the world today and everyone is so fake. And unfortunately, the reality is that if you're honest, if you're authentic, that could be a detriment to your survival. It's almost like a part of our, at least to this point, a part of our evolution was to be fake, to cheat people. That's the sad truth about it. To conceal, to be disguised, almost like a predator, how they're camouflaged, how the prey can't see what they're dealing with until it's too late. But I do believe that that's beginning to change now. At this point in our human evolution, we need to cooperate. We need honesty and togetherness in order to thrive. Because otherwise, at some point, we're all going to go extinct. That's what's going to happen unless we work together. So it seems like initially, for a short period of time, because our human existence is so short in the grand scheme of things, initially it's like being fake, being deceptive, being a predator. It's essential for survival, for the individual survival. But what about as the collective? What about it in the long term, in the future? We need togetherness. We need to have that vulnerability. We need to be open. And, when someone drops their guards, when someone is willing to be honest, open, and authentic, we need to welcome that person in. That person needs to be the leader of our tribe. That person needs to direct everything. Because that's going to get us to where we need to go. But this all comes down to betrayal. It's a big part of it is when you're open with someone, you trust in them, and they just turn around and betray you. It's a horrible thing. Wax says, love is greater than hate. It is. It's like I just said, hate can be stronger. It can be more passionate than love initially. But long term, hate just ends up devouring you, destroying you. Love wins in the end. So if you want short-term gains, hate can help you there, but eventually it's just going to eat away at you, and it's going to get you stuck in a vicious cycle. It's going to become habitual, addictive. But love is freeing. It entices you, and it can sustain you long term. Your here says, true, predators are subhuman, really. Yeah, they are, definitely. I mean, I've done some research about our ancestors, and I've heard some things that, we were eating meat, and that's what made our brains so developed as they are today. And, who knows if that is actually true. I'm a vegan myself, so I'm against meat. I don't really want to think that killing animals, abusing animals is something that helps us to progress. But even if it did back then, it seems that it's not beneficial now. And who knows if something else could have helped us. Maybe if we were vegan, that could have contributed to development of our brains as well. But at this point, I mean, now we know that predatory behavior, like eating meat, it can be good for short-term gains. It can make you strong, but long-term, it's not going to be good. It can cause heart disease, obesity, so many diseases. So regardless, at this point, predatory behavior is inferior. It's weak. Strength is about being more loving and compassionate. And I really believe that at this point. And I think that's really the future for us. That is our strength. And, it's really just conditioning more than anything else about, having to be cold and harm people, seeing that as a strength and seeing love as weak. I mean, yes, love can be weakness if you're around weak people. But if you're around strong people who aren't hurt, broken, then love is a strength. So love is only a weakness around weak people. That's what it is. Because the only reason you can't love and why you have to be, why someone has to be cold or even abusive is because they feel weak, they feel afraid, they feel threatened. Of course, that doesn't mean that you just let anyone walk all over you. If you're dealing with a weak person, then you can't be strong with them. You can't use love. You kind of have to just give them what they're giving to you. It's like what it says in the Bible about cast not your pearls into swine, lest they trample them. You don't give your love to weak people. But yeah, I've really enjoyed sharing this message with you today. And I enjoy going off topic sometimes, just talking about different types of things and just world issues, just outside of narcissism as well. And it's nice to see, consistently we had over 100 live viewers. It's good to see that people are thinking about these things, and we should be thinking about these things as a collective. So I'm glad I could promote these messages in this video today. But yeah, thank you for sharing a part of my afternoon with me. And I hope that this information has helped you about knowing what the narcissist's final move is, which of course is going to be the obsessive monitoring. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. Let's get this video out there. Share with me your thoughts in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button and click all notifications. That way you will be notified when I go live again. Donations are greatly appreciated. You can donate to my PayPal, which is paypal.me/Narc Survivor. And I am available for a one-on-one coaching session, which you can book through my website. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. And also you're welcome to follow me on my Instagram, which is Narc Survivor YouTube. So thank you all for joining me on this live video, and I will talk to you soon.